Cha, cha, cha.
Okay, we should be live. Hello, hello.
Hi, everybody. Yay! I love seeing all the folks in the chat. I just finished putting Cameron down for a nap. So hopefully he'll be asleep for a nice chunk of time. Yeah, he is such a sweet little guy. I can't believe that we have a 1-year-old. Oh my gosh, can you believe it? That's just nuts. So I'm just looking at the chat and stuff. Can everybody hear me? Hopefully everything sounds good and all of that. Do that. Here we go. Yay. I lost my chat for some reason. There it is. Yay. Awesome. Yeah, I see we have folks from Austria and Germany and Canada, as well as all over the United States. Thank you guys so much. Aw, Sun City.
Awesome. I'm going to do some tweaking and I'll be right back.
Yay.
Thank you guys for joining us a little bit early. We love to use this kind of beginning time to do a little quick sound check as well as check in with you guys and see how you're doing.
Absolutely.
So definitely let us know if there's any questions that we can kind of go through before we officially get started.
Yeah. And I see that Bettina wrote, you're not going to be able to be with us for the live stream. I hope you're still online right now. But thank you so much for still supporting. I'm really hoping that we're going to get back to Berlin again hopefully. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it for 21, but I'd love for us to be able to make it for 22. That would just be amazing. So hopefully. Oh, good. Sounds good. Yay. Oh, in the Netherlands too. Awesome. Yay. Oh, and of course, our dear home, San Diego. That's all right. I mean, I can't complain because we are in Honolulu, but there are some things I really miss. Those of you who are in San Diego, please order takeout from Plumeria and think of us. That was one of our absolute favorite restaurants. It's so delicious. And you forget that it's completely vegetarian. Like, it's just so yummy. So today is going to be a very fun day. We're going to be going over, we figured because, it's January, it's a new year, and I'm sure that many of you guys have New Year's resolutions about I'm going to, practice more, or I'm going to, learn this, that, or the other. So that's kind of what this is designed around, is kind of talking about different goals and things so that you can set goals for yourself. Because something that people tend to forget is that practicing just to practice, you find that you aren't very inspired and you don't, I don't know, I find for me, I need to have some kind of goal, right? So if I'm going to practice, I need to be able to, know that, in 5 months' time, I want to be able to play this song, and this song, or I want to be more proficient at X techniques, So we're going to be discussing and going more in depth on that, which is going to be really cool. And
we'll be talking about kind of example goals and things that we kind of did throughout our careers to kind of get us to the point that we want to be. And I'll go split screen for a second.
Yeah.
Aloha, everyone.
Can you guys hear Craig okay? Because you've gotten to hear a lot of me's, hopefully.
There was an echo. Was there an echo?
No echoes now. Solved. Whatever it was.
There was an echo?
Huh. I wonder if maybe my mic picked you up for a second. I don't know.
Huh.
Well, I'm glad it's fixed.
Like most of our workshops, we, depending on, one of the great things about having the workshops live is that there's sometimes some really great questions that can lead us to certain things that, is fantastic to bring up. So there will be some, usually we go between about an hour and a half.
Usually hour and a half.
So it kind of depends on, okay, so some people are having echo, some people are not. Okay. Curious.
Yay.
I'm always trying to make sure everything is sounding and looking as good as possible. Yeah, so it'll be about
90 minutes.
About 90 minutes typically. And again, this will be saved on YouTube for forever.
Yes.
And so you can always watch back. And And again, for everyone who purchased the packet, and thank you for especially those who did the pay it forward packet. Thank you so much. We still have
Yes.
a lot of people that are struggling at this time. Just it's a hard time right now for everyone in the world, and it's so again amazing that the ukulele community can take care of each other. So thank you so much for your support and for helping others as well. And again, we try to have as much material here on the screen as well, so that you don't feel obligated to have to get the packet. But thank you so much for those who did, for your support. It allows us to keep doing these fun workshops free on YouTube like this. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you guys so much. Woo! And also, I'm going to mention this again as we go through the packet, but there was one mistake in the packet, and it's very small, but it's a big mistake. As I wrote the wrong fret number for one of the chords in the packet, but I have it highlighted to remind me to tell you, I need to correct this. Some of you will already have corrected packets, because once it was pointed out to us, I went and switched the files so that people who purchased their packet after 7:10 a.m. Hawaii time got the corrected packet. So, and I'm going to just point it out, and then I think we're also going to do some sort of follow-up just to make sure that everybody has that correction. But I'll also mention it, of course, when we're going through, because I'll have to point it out.
Oh yeah, I'm got Carol. What a great suggestion, and Shirley got her echo fix. It was an extra window that was open.
Oh, whoops!
So we were coming from you stereo.
Yes.
Volume right now, we are close to kind of maxing out. The reason why the live stream software kind of holds us back a little bit is that we don't have as much time for things to process, and for broadcasting live there are usually it's a little bit lower, unless again we have like a news station type of setup where everything can be compressed a bunch. But typically if you have connected speakers, that helps a lot. Usually it's kind of soft on like laptop speakers or phone speakers, but we'll try to get this as close to that edge as possible. But live streams will typically be a little bit lower than pre-recorded videos, because pre-recorded videos we can get right up to that level in post and knock that out. But I'll try and tweak it for you just a little bit, just to see.
And I'm actually checking our email real quick, because I am seeing that we have some folks who are saying, I need my packet.
Yeah.
So you can, yes, it is not too late. You can still get your packets. Just go to craigandsarah.com and go to the live stream menu tab. You can also send us a quick email if you would like, since we will be monitoring our emails.
Oh my gosh, a blizzard.
What's up, hon?
Nora they're in the middle of a blizzard in Winnipeg, Canada right now.
Ooh, that sounds cold.
Oh my
Well,
gosh.
hopefully this workshop will keep you warm.
Oh, Teko's having an issue with the download as well.
Oh no!
Hi Teko, ohayo.
So Teko, I think I actually have his. I should have his.
Oh my gosh, Michael Newman, that's a fantastic. How come this isn't
There's
popping up?
Teko.
Let me see this. Let's do that. So that is a good section there. He's asking if we can address any kind of injuries while practicing, like golf or elbow, that kind of thing. Yes. Oh, Diane, it's so good to see you, Diane Nalini. Woohoo! And actually, Diane, if while we're talking about the practice stuff, you know what? I might. Let me. I'm gonna vanish myself from this for a second.
Yay! I'm so glad that some of you guys who have had some issues downloading are emailing us right now, so that we can get you taken care of. And Carol, hopefully, I'm pretty sure this is Busy Carol. I'm so glad that you're back into it. Hooray! I will send you a note. I'll send you a note regarding your email a little bit later today about our address. because I thought I had updated it, but maybe I had not finished doing all of the places I had to update it. So,
Oh,
no
and there was a
worries.
question about if people even bought the diaper package, which has a chord melody version of I
Yes.
Will. You can still donate. Maybe I think I have a little. Is it this one? Oh, there we go. So you can these donations go straight to upgrading and maintaining our gear and also hosting other artists as well. But you can donate here and that will go straight into our live stream work.
Yes.
But thank you guys so much for your support.
So we're also super excited. I think that we're going to be sending out another mailer about this stuff, not the next email blast, but I think in February, we're going to be starting to announce some of the cool things that we have planned for Ukulele Festival Hawaii. Some of you may or may
We're
not
so
know
excited.
that we have taken up the mantle of Ukulele Festival Hawaii, but we are being guided by Roy and Kathy Sakuma. It's been so awesome working hand in hand with them and sharing ideas and really being able to sort of create a vision together, which has been really fun. And we've got some really great sort of mini events that we will be doing leading up to the big day. The big day is going to be July 18th, and it's going to be, I'm so excited, and everybody that we've spoken to about it as far as planning and everything, everybody has been super excited. All of the ideas we've had have been received very well, and cannot wait to share them with you. Just sort of a brief, without giving too much away, is there's going to be, starting in April, a mini event once a month. So April, May, June, there's going to be events leading up to the big day, where we're going to have different sort of themes, and they're going to be completely free to watch. I think the first event is going to be focused on local, and so you're going to see a lot of great, just not only players, but some other local, I'm just going to say things for now, so that you can enjoy and feel like you're here on the islands with us. And then the next one is going to be a workshop day. And oh my gosh, the teachers we have lined up, oh my God, it's so exciting. And then the third mini event is going to be an international showcase. So we're going to get to see all kinds of folks from all over the world, so we can see just how far our wonderful instrument has reached. And then we'll have our big day where we celebrate community, uke clubs, kids playing, and as well as, of course, local artists. So it's going to be a really amazing time.
Yeah, we have a lot of special things to announce for that. But yes, Rob, it is going to be 100% virtual this year.
Yes.
That is the main event plus the 3 mini events leading up to it. But there will be a lot of live performances and workshops where we're going to be in the venue. We'll talk about the venue a little bit later.
Yes.
We're excited.
Yes, we're really excited. And I know that everybody's really going to enjoy them too. It's just, it's been really neat being able to spend time and curating and creating these events. And I'm just so grateful that we have this opportunity, because it's just going to be so cool. And thank you guys for continually emailing. I'm still answering folks.
Oh, Jill Geary,
So
we
you
miss
guys-
you too.
Aw, is
We
that
miss San Diego.
Jill. Yeah, I told everybody in San Diego to please order takeout from Plumeria and think of us.
Yes.
We miss
Oh
that
my
place so
gosh.
much. We found there's a place here called The Pig and the Lady it's not vegetarian, but it's at least like on the same level of deliciousness. So so
No. And thank you guys for helping each other out in the chat too.
we really appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, Mike and Patty. That's so great to see
Is Mike
everyone.
here?
This is so great.
Yay!
You guys are fantastic. This is like us like going. This is our new social life. Is when we get to see you guys during our, our live streams.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, good morning. Good morning.
There we go.
Nice. Techo got his packet. Perfect.
Great. Yes.
And we'll be kind of peeking at the emails throughout the
Throughout.
live streams like we normally do in case people are having issues with them. We'll get them sent to you right away.
Yeah, we do try to be. There's many screens on right now for us to look and just kind of.
Ooh. Helen's first time on a Craig and Sarah event.
Yay!
We hope we don't scare you away. We'll see what happens.
And so we're still, some people had asked me about next month. So next month we're going to be doing a Valentine theme. We're going to just work on an arrangement of a song. And we actually haven't picked the song yet, which is why we're like, we're going to be doing a Valentine song. But as soon as we have the song picked, we'll let you guys know if you're on our email list.
And actually, because you guys are joining us today, if you have any Valentine Day song or any kind of love songs that you wouldn't want like a really fun arrangement on, let us know in the chat like right now, and I'll rewatch the video and see.
That's true, because we can see
if there's any great ideas that pop up. But yeah, well, we're gonna hopefully do not only a solo version but a duet version with multiple parts on the uke, as well as a chord melody version for those of you who don't sing with your voice but you sing with your ukulele.
Yes.
So we'll have your back too. So we want to make a really nice arrangement of a love song for you guys. Yeah, this is gonna be so much fun. Woohoo! My Funny Valentine. That's so funny.
That was actually one that I said.
That's what Sarah mentioned too.
Yeah, but I was thinking of like changing it up so it's not just the sort of a ballad, that you could even make it more like Latin-y.
Yeah, there's so many fun choices.
I'm like, I want to look at the chat and see what people are saying. Oh yeah, you're still the one.
Ooh,
Yes.
I used to call that the Burger King song because Burger King did a huge promotion when I was growing up.
Right.
As for the commercials.
So it's funny.
So I thought that was the Burger King song.
So I was practicing playing that song because I was going to lead it on our cruise a couple years ago for the jam. And Craig was like, why are you practicing the Burger King song? I'm like, what do you mean the Burger King song? Because I didn't realize that it had been used for that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, it had to be you. Oh my gosh. So, quick story. I used to love to go to a place called the Red Fox Room in San Diego, California. I don't know if, I feel like I think it closed, but it was an old piano bar that had been around since I think the 60s. And I loved it, but there was this adorable old man that used to sing It Had to Be You, and he always wore sweaters that were full sweaters that also had a crocheted sweater vest in the sweater. And he had a cute little hat, and he always sang that song, and he would always do the, it had to be you, my wife wouldn't do, and he'd like point at some pretty lady in the audience or whatever. Oh my God. But whenever I hear that song, I always think of that adorable old man.
Wow, there is some absolutely great
I love the way you look tonight. I used to perform that song. It's such a pretty song.
All right. Well, it is time to officially start, but keep those song suggestions coming. If you want, you can always email us with some suggestions, but we are going to start working on those arrangements probably in a few days.
It's a great one.
So today's... Oh, I still have Diane's.
There are still so many great songs coming in. I love it. Thank you guys, because I love that you're saying all these songs. And I'm like, oh yeah, that one. Oh yeah, because there's so many beautiful songs about love out there.
Do this.
Boop, boop.
Yeah, I'm still honing in on this new software that we're using for the stream, which is Ecamm Live, ECAMM Live, and it's been really fun so far. A lot more consistent than OBS. But anyways, okay, I'll probably have another tech live later because there's so many things that have changed. But let's talk about today's big theme. We've all been there when we're learning something fun on the ukulele, where we oh my gosh, that sounds great. And then there's this other thing that we want to learn, and there's this other thing we want to learn, and we want to do it all. And unfortunately, we don't have, a million hours a day to practice and to dedicate to just practicing the ukulele. So, what the big hope for today is, we're going to spend the first half of today's workshop talking about things that we utilized when we wanted to learn something on the ukulele. How did we get there? Things that we did to break things down and hone in on certain elements, setting long-term goals and short-term goals, as well as give you guys example goals, because sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? So some of these things we hope inspire you to really think about where you're headed on your ukulele journey, what's important, so that we can prioritize our time practicing, and making sure that everything we do is helping us get to our end goal. I mean, yes, it's okay to take some detours here and there, but again, that's when we start to lose track sometimes of where we want to end up. So today's big theme is, of course, setting goals and how to achieve them. And the second half of today's workshop will be using the song I Will as an example of all the things that you can do to, again, create what you have in mind, rather than just, okay, I can play that song. You know, so we'll talk about the so what, like what's the point? Like, are you wanting to, perform it for other people, or is it just for yourself? Do you want to be able to change it up? Do you want to be able to play it in a group? Are you a singer? Do you want to be able to play and sing at the same time, also while doing a new syncopated rhythm? I mean, there's so many things when it comes down to it that we want to be able to analyze and really think about the steps necessary to get to where you want to be. And of course, it's getting harder and harder to find these times to practice, right? Because there's so much going on, and sometimes it's intimidating to be like, oh my gosh, I gotta work on scales, and I gotta work on these progressions, and I gotta memorize the lyrics, and so part of it is, again, taking things step by step. And so we're gonna try and break down some of the things that, again, that worked for us, and worked for others, that we've talked to other artists about, and even we had a chance to talk to our Artist Work students last week on a private
great.
Zoom, and that was a lot of fun. And we shared some of our tips there, and also got a chance to talk to them about things that did work as well. And we'll be bringing in a special guest in a little bit to also talk about her experience and what worked for her as well.
Oh, I didn't know.
So that'll be fun, and that'll be a little fun swing there.
Surprise! Surprise for all of us.
All right. So I'm going to pull up the iPad. There we go. So again, this beginning part will be just a lot of talking, but that second half will be a hands-on, using I Will and being able to play through with a lot of different fun things added. So let's see. Yes, Carol, intentional practice. Exactly. That is exactly what we're getting to, because there's practicing for the sake of practicing, but there's also practicing with intent.
And when you
what do you hope to do to do while you practice? What is the reason behind it, besides just hearing yourself play? And for those who just say, oh, I just want to play it, and that's totally fine, but you can still play and try new things. And again, hitting multiple birds with one stone is always going to be the most efficient way of practicing, rather than just exercises that only focus on one tiny thing. You can always make things more connected. Let's see. So one of the biggest hurdles, I feel, is being able to isolate the things that are giving you trouble. A lot of times we get so caught up in the moment when we're playing a song, and we know it's not quite like either performance ready, or it's not quite up to our standards, but we have a hard time articulating what exactly we don't like about it. And that's where half the battle is. And a lot of times, 90% of the time, mistakes happen because we're trying to do too many things at once. When there's a new song, like for example, if you never heard the song "I Will" before, and we'll get to that for the second half, and you try to learn it and you try to follow along as people are playing it, one, you're starting to look at these new chords, or chords that you already know, but in a different progression or a different combination of. So some of these transitions you're kind of going through for the first time. Two, you're trying to understand the melody, where the melody is, so that you could follow along. And especially if you're hearing the song for the very first time, you need to hear it multiple times to really catch on. Three is the lyrics. If you're trying to then practice and play along, and you're kind of sight reading the lyrics, the chords, the measures, any other information that's in that sheet music, but there's so much going on that it's incredibly frustrating. And unless, the more you do it, the easier it will get, yes. But at the same time, there are things that we still do to this day where we isolate one kind of section at a time. So maybe the first thing we do, we don't even look at the lyrics. We just look through the progression and say we have a G, we have an E minor, we have an A minor, and we have a C. Oh no, a D. And let's say, okay, that's not too bad, but maybe going from the G to the E minor, that might be a little tricky. So maybe I'll try to isolate that. Okay, what can I do? And something that we'll talk about as we go through the song later is, if this is our G and this is our E minor, we look at what's really changing. These two guys don't change at all. The third fret on the E, second fret on the A. From a G to an E minor is the exact same frets. So the only thing that's really happening, because G is staying open as well, is that C string is going from the second fret to that fourth fret. So that means I could theoretically do something like this, G to E minor, by just adding my pinky there. And again, these are the things that, you want to be able to really hone in on. Anything that's giving you any kind of stumble, like, oh, okay, maybe it's the A minor to a D. And usually I always recommend A minor with the middle finger, because it allows, if you kind of point your index out like this, it allows you to have a lot of space so that your index will never touch the A string. Because sometimes if you use your index here for the A minor, we can sometimes have it resting on the A string, which gives it that buzz. But middle finger is always going to be a lot easier to get that note to ring. But I say going from an A minor to a D here is a little tricky in time. So maybe, okay, what are some of the other things I could do? I could play a D like this. So A minor to D. But it's always isolating things that, again, are giving you any kind of hiccup at all. Don't be afraid to just stop and think about, okay, how can I make that tiny little section easier or more efficient? A lot of it then is, talking about, so transitions, pattern memorizations, and then going all the way back to, okay, maybe there's some holes in my foundation. Maybe when I'm going from, let's say, a C to an F to a G7 in a song, maybe I find myself doing way too much of this. I'm going from a C to an F to a G7, and I'm finding myself doing this crazy wrist action. That, again, is a telltale sign that you shouldn't ever need to do something like that. You should go from a C and be like almost ready for that F. And then again, just a little bit of movement to get to the G7, push it back out to the C. But these are going to be the building blocks that allow you to quickly go from chord to chord. So if you find yourself doing way too much of this, you got to stop and realize, okay, what really needs to change, what really needs to happen, so that you can minimize those movements And then again, everything else past that will get easier and easier and easier, because you're not then worrying about balancing the uke while you're learning the chord changes, while you're memorizing the lyrics, but again, taking that one step at a time. So you being able to break things down and hone in on focused practice. So again, that whole practicing with intent. Actually, Sarah has a good example of kind of having that balance of work and play a little bit. With
And
that.
also, somebody was mentioning now, is it possible to not have the text next to you so that you're a little bit bigger?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Hi. Yay.
And so, did you want to talk a little bit about how you would balance that when you're practicing with something, but still being able to have fun with other things while you go through it?
So, sorry, I've been doing a bunch of emails, so my mind is, I've got to kind of come back in and center. So, are you talking about how I sort of structure my practice? Right? So, with structuring my practice, usually what I like to do is I will start with like a 5-minute or less warm up. So whether it's the spider that the Aldrine spider that Craig teaches, or a myriad of other exercises that Craig and I teach, I will spend time actually doing those. And Craig and I do those exercises. There's something you're going to be doing for forever and ever. And then usually after that, I'll kind of do that's when I work on those isolated issues, the things that are difficult. I'll work on that for, like 10, 15 minutes. Again, it depends on how long my practice time is. But the chunk of my practice time is going to be spent on hard transitions or something that's just given me trouble. Then I will usually do repertoire. So if there's a song, say I have a performance coming up, I'm going to work on maybe 1 or 2 of the songs. If I have a lot of time to practice, of course, I'll work on more of those songs, but I'll play, the 2 that are the most difficult I'll run through those tunes, but then I always end my session with something fun because you want to make sure that you end your session with something that makes you smile so that you remember your practice fondly. I find that if I spend too much time working on just hard stuff, that if I'm not having fun, because sometimes practicing the hard stuff is fun because you're seeing yourself progress and it gets you excited. But I always like to try to practice something that is easy breezy and brings back happy memories or something at the end.
Yeah, so again, practicing with intent, a lot of times too, you can get away with, if it's like memorization of pattern, or if it's, working on that spider. If you don't need to like look at it 100% of the time, you can do this while, reading a book, or, watching TV. But it's going through the motions to get that muscle memory there. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you just have to do something 1,000 times, and you just have to go through those motions, and that's where that muscle memory builds from. So again, you don't necessarily need 100% dedicated practice time. You can be doing things throughout the day.
Yeah.
Even while in my morning coffee, I'll start heating the water, and I'll just kind of work through some scales just to get my fingers warmed up. But it's these tiny little things throughout the day that really do add up. And there was a great question, or Eric actually mentioned changing from C to A minor to F. Does it matter if we leave the pinky on that C note? And that's a great example where, again, it's all about context. So the more you practice, the more you'll see these things. So if you're going from a C to an A minor, yeah, you could use your pinky here, C to A minor to F, and even G7, and pinky if that helps that stretch. But there's, again, just like the G to E minor, there's going to be multiple ways of playing a chord, because depending on the context, we can change it up. Going into F minor is hard for me.
F minor is a tricky chord. Yeah.
Did you have any tips for F minor?
So it depends on what you're coming from. So there is, a lot of times what happens is it's F to F minor, right? That's where people go, oh no, right? So this particular sort of fix is good, but it takes a little bit of practice. So if you're holding F, just 2 open, 1 open, right? And if you're gonna go to F minor, one thing that I actually do is I'll put my pinky down And my middle finger on the G string, I actually move it down to the first fret. It's gonna feel awkward at first, but that's all I'm doing is just, I have F, I add my pinky and scoot this finger down. So for me, doing that is easier than doing the finger swap. Now, let's say you have joint issues and you can't do this movement with your middle finger, right? What I usually will do then is just practice putting down. So this is going into isolating, is I'll put my pinky down and swap these two fingers. And then I will just go back and forth holding F, swapping, back and forth, like that, so that I practice this grouping. So this is if you can't do that one little whoop movement with your middle finger. So again, there's more than one way you can play that F minor chord. A lot of times people don't always think about moving their finger backward because it's not the most natural feeling, but it is a really fast way of doing it, especially if the song is super fast, or if you're only playing F minor for 1 or 2 beats, you can just kind of sneak that finger down.
Now, I had a great video exchange with an artist work student recently, and one of the issues was getting to a diminished shape really quickly. And, you know, a lot of these things, again, once we get there, it's fine. But it's how do we get there from a neutral position, or how do we get there from another chord? One of the things that really, really helped me when I'm learning something like a diminished chord for the first time, or a crazy shape like this or a crazy shape like that, is I'll take my end result that I want. So let's say we want, 2, 3, 2, 3 there. So here's my diminished chord, right? Now, what we're gonna do is again, we use this so many different ways, but we're gonna do a strum, and then we're gonna release that tension. You see how I'm squeezing and releasing that left hand? So I'm gonna squeeze the strum and release the tension. And I'm gonna do this for about, 5 minutes straight. And what this is starting to build, it's building that muscle memory of what that chord feels like when we have those fingers in that particular shape. After we get used to that, then what we're gonna do is do a strum and then release the strings, but this time we're gonna go about 1 inch up. So from here, and then release about 1 inch up. So strum, release, strum, release, strum, release. So you can kind of keep that shape when we release a little bit higher, so we can go straight back down. Now, again, this will take some time. The third part to this exercise is from here, you're gonna actually release and try to wiggle your fingers and be in a neutral spot, and then get back down to that shape. So neutral to that shape, neutral. But again, you see how we needed to kind of build that up from at the start, the end point, and just releasing the tension, keeping that shape. Then the second part is strum, but come about 1 inch off, and you can still hold that shape. And all of this is building into that muscle memory so that we can go again from a neutral kind of position straight down to that chord. And the reason why this is going to be really good is that once you get used to just coming down on it, it's going to be there like forever. That's when you think of that chord shape, is that you want to be able to just go from neutral straight there. There are going to be a lot of times where, this was coming off of the Mele Kalikimaka chord melody arrangement that we did, where we had so we had going from a 3rd fret to the 2nd fret, and then going to that diminished. So one of the easiest ways to do that is, using your pinky, so that your pinky is already there for that diminished. So, always thinking about what's coming before and after to help make your decision on what fingers to use, getting there. So, a lot of this is, again, taking the time to kind of just get used to what the end result is going to be, and then try to work towards that from a neutral position. So whether it's, diminished shaped, or like a D minor 7 shape, and then neutral straight down to D minor 7. So same thing with the F minor. You can even break this down a little bit more, where okay, if it's these two guys plus the pinky, I'll try to just get these two guys down first and just practice that muscle memory, and then see if I can add my pinky to the mix. But again, these two guys should be relatively easy in comparison, but it's about going from neutral to there, neutral to there, and then adding the pinky, boom, bop, boom, bop, boom. So regardless of what comes from an F, we have a slight second where it goes back to neutral and then straight down. But again, if we can't get to that easily to begin with, our transition isn't gonna sound great at all, right? So we have to get that muscle memory down first. Okay, were there any other that was a great comment.
Yes.
The C6 shape on the 5th fret.
So C6 shape on the 5th fret. For that one, I'm not sure if this, so for me, this is an exercise that we kind of came up with that we called Sarah's inchworm, but it's one where you hold that shape. So the shape he's talking about is 5, 7, 5, 7.
It looks like a gigantic diminished shape.
Yeah, it looks like the giant diminished. And what I talk about is moving one finger at a time. So I have this one, and then I scoot down my ring by itself, and then scoot down the pinky, and then scoot down the index. Oh, actually, no, I think I do it in groupings. That's a variation. So I have it here, move down both fingers at the same time, then move down the index in the middle. And that forces me to practice those two shapes, right? But then you could do the variation I was just mentioning, which is one finger at a time. Ring, pinky, index, middle, ring, pinky, index, middle,
99%
ring,
of the time, if that shape is giving you issues, that typically means that your wrist is all the way out, trying to reach across the strings without touching the other strings. Again, this kind of shape gets so much easier when you bring this in a bit, and see how much more curl I have in my fingers now, and that allows me to be more kind of accurately pressing those strings down compared to when it's out like this. So there's going to be a huge difference in just that.
And never be married to how you learned a chord. So if you learned how to play a chord, like somebody mentioned the D chord, if you learned to play that D chord with 3 fingers, great. But if you learn to play it or prefer to play it with 1 finger where you can do that cool double bend thing, that's also fine. The biggest thing is being able to play your chords multiple different ways, because it's all about context, what chord comes before it and after it, that's going to sort of delineate which version is going to be more efficient for you. So it's just good to be able to do either.
Okay, so another huge tip moving forward is looking at songs out of order. Instead of always starting at the beginning, when you're trying to memorize a song or get a song performance ready, start a song from the chorus.
Yeah.
Or work on that last verse over and over to make sure that the ending is as tight as it can be. That's a big kind of thing that I learned the hard way, is that, typically when we practice from the beginning, our ending is typically the weakest, because sometimes things happen and we stop, in the middle of the song and do something else and come back to it, start from the beginning, etc. And don't be afraid of filming yourself practicing.
Yes.
We've done Zooms now. We're pros at it, right? We're all like Zoom pros at this point. But use that recording function to just practice what you look like practicing. Because a lot of times too, we miss some of the errors. We miss, oh my gosh, that transition wasn't as clean as I thought, or that segment, that run. So that's where you can really help hone in your performance, or just discover things that you didn't really notice because you're concentrating so hard on getting through a song. Now, some of the example goals I'm going to bring up now is things that, we'll break down some of them today, but again, part of these example goals are in hopes to inspire you to think about where you want to go or what to focus on next. So, I'm going to kind of go through the list, and we'll kind of break some of them up, and I'm going to have a wonderful friend jump in just a second. But one is, a lot of people rely on sheet music, right? When you perform. To me, even if I have a song memorized that I've played for 10 years straight, if I have the music up in front of me, my eye will go straight to it every time. Even if I haven't memorized, and I end up making more mistakes because I'm kind of sight reading, and you know, it's a big distraction, and not only if for you, but if you start to eye just this part, your audience is going to see that as well. So for me, the memorization thing is not about being a professional or anything like that. You know, like orchestra, right? Orchestra, they still use music on stands, but they're part of a bigger group, a bigger entity. Especially if you're doing solo, every little thing that you do is a much higher percentage of what people are focusing on compared to a group or compared to like an orchestra. So, you know, they're analyzing your every little move, how you know, form a phrase or things that you're doing differently. It's all right there on the open. So getting off of the page is not only going to help the performance side, but also, again, it really does make you rely on that muscle memory of going through that song over and over and over without relying on that sheet music. You know, another example goes like, I want to be able to play and sing at the same time. So when it comes down to that, it goes back to sometimes we try to do too much at once. We try to learn a song and learn the chords and learn the progression and learn the lyrics and the phrasing of said lyrics. And it's just too much. And that's where things fall apart. It makes it exponentially harder to get down. So part of it is, okay, I need to just work on the chord progression. I need to just have that under my belt. And this is actually a challenge that I laid out for our artist work students who are part of that Zoom, is that one of the best things that I did when I was trying to work on playing and singing at the same time was, let's say I'll stick on one chord first, so just my C chord, and I'll try to just do 4 downs per measure, you know, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, this is not too bad, right? But the trick is trying then to read off of a book or even what's in front of you, like a cereal box. I used to do like the ingredients in my coffee. But then for every beat, or let's say every measure, you would say one syllable. So B, in, 4 beats. So B. No, that's too much. Too little bit. I mean, let's do one syllable per beat. So memorize a song. Playing and singing at the same time. But being able to start adding things that you don't have memorized while you're holding down that beat or that progression. Because then you can see how this can get trickier, right? So then all of a sudden, let's say I want to then saying the same thing, but maybe this time 2 syllables, maybe every other beat, or you can start trying to kind of free flow your lyrics or your reading while holding down that C chord. So now, again, if I'm talking, memorizing a song, playing and singing, I can kind of lean on the beat at the same time, creating a set you're comfortable with, you know, being able to hold that down. But again, that's only one chord. So maybe I'll start switching from C to G. C, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4. And going back to reading my example goes, memorize a song, playing and singing at the same time, creating a set you're comfortable with, and trying, again, different variations to make things fit. Because if you can do this, it's going to help you whenever you're learning a new song and learning how to apply these different phrases over a set measure. You're building on those skills. And again, it is a skill. It is doing, you know, again, this whole that thing, right? There's so many
Yeah.
different elements, but this is a great example on how to start from the very, very simple and start building towards that. Again, a lot of times we just try to do way too much.
And I just want to add, we'll talk a little bit more about this. I think later in the packet I have some of this written out. But the other thing too is take it one hand at a time. So record yourself going through your chord progression, and go through the whole song. And then listen back to your recording and practice singing your lyrics to it. The important thing there is you want to be able to hear what your instrument and your playing is going to sound like so that you get used to hearing those changes while you're singing. And you're not having to worry about what chord or the rhythm that you're playing, right? You're purely focusing on the lyrics and the melody of the song. And you can have your lyric sheet in front of you as you practice. If you happen to have the lyrics memorized, like if it's a song you know really well, you still record yourself playing just that on the uke, and then while put on your headphones, put it on repeat, and while you're doing dishes or whatever, sing along to yourself playing, and that will allow you to really hone in and make sure you have the lyrics and the melody memorized. Once you feel comfortable with that, and also in the midst of this, you'll also practice just the ukulele on its own with your chords. Then you can put them together when you feel like you have one or both of them really solid. And I find that you'll have a greater rate of success if you break it down and say, I'm going to work on vocals and I'm going to work on uke, and then putting them together, especially if you have a lot of trouble singing and playing at the same time. I find that helpful.
Yes, and I know I'm seeing some artist work students that didn't realize
that we had the Zoom
that we had
meeting?
the Zoom call. We try to we have in the forums there the Craig and Sarah bulletin that goes through any kind of new things that we're doing, or I always try to mention it in the shout box as well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's no easy way to just email all of our
I wish.
artist work students, but that's
the Zoom meeting was recorded, and there's a link to it in the forum. If you go to forums, Craig and Sarah
Yes.
Bulletin, and click on the thread where we announced the Zoom, I think you'll see that. I still think I have to put up that one lesson that was mentioned, but yeah.
okay. And let's see. Let me do this, and let me make sure.
But I think we're going to start doing them once a month, and they're going to be different kind of themed. I think we're thinking our next one might actually be an open mic, but it's an open mic that if you want feedback, we can give you like a short thing of feedback, I think is what we're planning on for February.
Yes. So that's just gonna be a lot of fun. We're
So it's like a
experimenting
live
with
VE,
completely
yeah.
new things that we can further help you guys with that as well. Now I'm inviting a friend to the stream because Diane is such an incredible artist, and let me add her. Let's see, add to the right.
There she is.
Hi,
and-
guys. Oh.
There we go. Yeah, and Diane
Hi.
has been with us at Artistworks for a bit now.
Since
And
the
Yeah,
beginning, I think.
since the beginning.
I know, that's amazing. And one of the things that, she's an incredible musician and jazz singer. And one of the things that she wanted to do was get better on the ukulele. And seeing that progression, Diane, was so awesome. And I wanted to, as we talk about some of the goals and example goals that worked for you, what were some of the key things that really helped solidify your progression on the ukulele?
Wow. Well, you guys have been, can you hear me?
Yep.
Are you able to hear me? Okay. Excellent.
I am,
Okay.
not
Well,
Sarah.
thank you for.
Yeah, sorry. I
Oh,
can't
okay.
hear you, but I'll
Oh, that's all
smile.
right. Oh, yay.
So
Well, I
smile and
put-
nod.
I put a blue light in my background in honor of Sarah's shirt to match
Ooh,
Sarah's shirt.
nice.
But anyway, I just wanted to say you guys have been a wonderful teachers, such inspiration. And I love Artistworks so much. So I'm doing like a shameless plug there for Artistworks, just to say how wonderful you both are as
thank
teachers.
you.
And I think that in itself has been a wonderful inspiration for me, a motivator for me. From the beginning, one of the things I really wanted to focus on was jazz. Obviously, I'm a jazz singer. I've been performing professionally for, should I admit how long? A couple of decades. It makes me feel old to say that. But anyway, I started singing when I was really young. I started singing jazz when I was 3, and I always regretted not playing an instrument. I mean, I noodled at the piano. I studied some guitar, which was helpful for songwriting for sure, because I could cover all the basics. But I always felt the guitar was too big for me, and my hands were always sore especially because I was trying to make jazz chords. And I think nobody had taught me about shell voicings. So there I was trying to kind of do these big mega chords on the guitar. Anyway, long story short, I didn't continue with the guitar because it just didn't feel right for me. And when I discovered the ukulele, it was like, I felt like Goldilocks, I had found just the right instrument for me, for my hands, for my, I loved the tone of it. I loved the sound of it, but I really didn't realize that you could do such wonderful jazz on it until I found videos of Sarah playing, and I saw videos of Lyle Ritz and Benny Chong and people like that. And I was like, oh my God, this instrument is wonderful for jazz. And you can do everything apart from playing root position chords, which you can do on the ukulele. It's just a little bit more, limited. But apart from that, you can do all the wonderful, sophisticated jazz voicings, especially if you're willing to forego the root. And because my husband's a bassist, so he can cover the bass. So then I can play like nice 13 chords or whatever. It's great. But for me, the most important thing in order for me to feel inspired was to get to the jazz as quickly as possible, because while I love folk music and I love to listen to it and even to noodle it, it's not typically what I perform. So I wanted to be able to perform and play, or at least at first I started just writing on the ukulele. I used it as a songwriting tool. And for that, I really needed to get my basics down. So the thing that helped me in terms of my jazz goals on ukulele was really working through my 2-5-1 progressions at first. It was like major 2-5-1s, minor 2-5-1s. I know you guys have really great lessons on that in the program in Artist Works. And then I would take these backing tracks by Jamie Aebersold and just play through them in all 12 keys in major and minor. And then I would do my 1-6-2-5s, because what's really interesting is once you start hearing those progressions, once you can detect them, you start to hear them everywhere, and you realize, my God, jazz songs are just like a puzzle with different pieces, and it's just like you rearrange the blocks and you get a different jazz tune, but really it's a lot of the same progressions coming back all the time.
Nice. And I had a question too, because I know when you kind of first started, your left hand was really different than what it is now. Honing that in and what?
You guys helped so much with the ergonomics, because I used to pop my wrist out.
I mean, there is some wiggle room within that, but the biggest thing is to make sure that you don't hurt yourself. And for some people who are still struggling to kind of hone that in, what are some of the things that you did to kind of work on that? Like, how did you?
Well, I didn't like. So, for example, one of the things, and when I teach workshops on jazz comping, I noticed that one of the most one of the most challenging chords for students of jazz is this one, the C6, the one that looks like this. Oh, sorry, I'll just cut to it so people can see what I'm talking about. This one, the one that is like 2-4-3-3, and that one, whether you call it, that's a C6 chord, it's also an A minor, it's also a D9 sus4. So it's the same, it's the same 4 notes, but it can be different things depending on what the bass note is in the chord. That one, it took me a while, because I think if you're popping your wrist out when you try to do this chord, it's going to be a disaster, because you're forcing your poor little finger to bend by more than like just a flat shape here. You're trying to make it curve, because the more you pop your wrist out, the more that poor finger has to bend. So what I started doing at first in order to get my hands around it was just doing a double bar. So barring at that 2nd fret, and then putting down this finger here. So 2-2-3-3. And that, in fact, if you're reaching eventually, if you're trying to do an A minor 7, this is actually an A minor 11 chord. So it is a form of a minor chord, and you can get away with it as long as you accept that it's going to sound a little bit different from an A minor 7. But that, for people who have that difficulty bending here, that's a really good transition chord. And then you just have to practice trying to get that fourth finger there. And you can always do it. This is how guitarists do it, because the frets are so far apart on a guitar that most guitarists, you'll never see them play this chord this way. Many of them do use all four fingers. So that's the other option, is like just doing it like that with all four of your fingers. And you just, whichever way you choose, I think you just have to practice. So the A minor 7 to D7, that one here, you got to practice that as part of your, it just becomes like second nature. And that was a huge challenge for me at first, was feeling comfortable that shape. I always thought I was going to permanently bend my finger into the wrong shape. But I think one has to be gentle with oneself. At first I thought my left hand wasn't strong enough, and I bought myself one of those finger exercisers. It looks like a trumpet, but you kind of do this with your fingers. And I didn't use it that much but I did use it a little bit at first to try to get a little bit of extra finger strength. But I think one of the biggest revelations was that you don't have to squeeze very hard to get a clean sound. And I was squeezing too hard at first. And that's another cool thing that I learned from you guys, was just that trick with the bar chords of always keeping your wrist straight, using some leverage, making sure you can make a clean sound without even using your thumb at the back of the instrument. These are all things that the bar chord was the biggest challenge as well. Hugely challenging at first. But I think people have to have patience. And just accept that it's not all going to sound great from the very beginning. I think we're all very impatient for everything to sound great. And so it's just important to accept that while you're trying to get that clean sound, it might take a month, it might take several months to have that clean bar sound, but it will come. I think one has to have faith that it will eventually happen. Yeah. And I know, Craig, you have some really terrific tips about even just trying to experiment with moving your fingers slightly one way or the other, just till you find the right point where all your flesh is in contact.
Well, like you said, there's so many times where we get we hone in, we get tunnel vision on just that one element, and then we just keep going at it, even though it's not really working. But if we squeeze our hand like a million times the power of the sun, then it kind of works. So we're like, oh, okay, well,
And then somebody had asked if Diane could show the guitar players playing C6 one more time now that she's on full screen.
Sure. Sorry. So 2, 4, 3, 3. You'd put your index at the second fret on your G string. You would put then your middle finger at the E string on the third fret. Your ring finger or your fourth finger on the A string at the third fret, and then your pinky reaches out over here on the fourth fret on the C string. So it looks really awkward, but for example, my husband, even though he's a very dexterous bassist, he doesn't like this. His fingers don't bend this way to do this shape. So when he plays this chord on a baritone ukulele, let's say, he'll always do it this guitar player way.
Nice. And before we let you go, are there any tips that you have for people who are putting together their practice routine or thinking about what kind of goals might they go into for the new year?
I think you guys gave some wonderful tips already. I think the tip of recording yourself, and what I always think is best for myself and for my students is record yourself and be very honest about what you see when you play back. If there's a point in a song where you're hesitating and the transition, either your lyrics are not coming out because you're distracted by your hands, or you're hesitating, or you can't reach for that next chord, make a note. Maybe if you're looking at sheet music, circle all the parts in the music that are giving you problems, and then almost rewind your own practice by a few bars before and a few bars after, and then put that part on loop and don't move on and slow it down. I would just say that's the other key. People want to play fast, but in order to play clean, you have to slow everything down and play very slowly. And when play at the tempo, which allows you to almost get bored, like it's so slow that you're like, oh yeah. my next chord is going to be, it's like that. When you're that slow and you can actually get into the time and the rhythm really juicy, like squeezing every bit out of it so that you can just nail the next transition, that's the right tempo to stay at for a while until that transition becomes smooth. And then just increase it by 4 beats per minute every day. Do it gradually so that it stays smooth. And then it might take you 2 weeks to get to the tempo you want to be at, but that's okay because by the time you get there, you're going to be like smooth sailing, right?
Awesome. Well,
So that would be the number one advice, I think.
Perfect. Thank you so much for this impromptu. I saw her in the chat.
Thank
So it should
you.
be great to kind of ask and jump on. Thank you so much for.
thank
I
you.
know you said you just came back from like walking in the snow and everything. So thank you so
It's
much.
minus
for-
15. Oh,
Oh
it's
my
a pleasure,
gosh.
Craig. Thank you for giving me time to do my hair. I was like, for those of you who don't know, I have very curly, spazzy hair, and I had it under a big toque because it's freezing cold outside. So I got your text, and I was like, oh, but I look like a wreck, so I need time to do my hair. So
Well, it
thank
is
you for giving me
also
time.
like freezing here as well.
Really?
It's like 76 degrees, and it's just the worst.
I might have to wear
It's-
socks.
Oh my God, you guys, that is so ridiculous. I have zero sympathy for your freezing weather. Holy cow, but it's so great to see
Oh,
you
but
guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Diane. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Good to see you. Bye, Sarah. Bye, Craig. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Definitely check her out. She is an amazing musician and
she
just
has
a lovely, lovely person.
And she's got a great series, Ukulele for Jazz Singers. And I even think it's ukuleleforjazzsingers.com. And it's a really great series of videos. So we highly recommend it and checking her out. And she does regular live streams too.
Yes, and they're-
I think they're doing My Funny Valentine.
I know, but they're Sony users, so but before we start getting into I Will, let me see if there's other things I wanted to bring up. Some other example. Sorry. There was something about the bar chord that someone asked. I wanted to do a quick snippet on that. Okay, so the bar chord, yes, we a lot of times we talk about like pulling back a little bit, using like your shoulders, your other muscles, your arms, and your right forearm is kind of counterbalancing that. So that way I could play a bar chord without my thumb all day long and not have any kind of stress on my hand or this pinch at all. Now, Diane gave some really good tips, and I want to mention one more on this chord. That A minor 7 chord or C6 chord. Another way of, typically the hardest thing about this chord is you see this guy sticking up, right? This scoop with that middle finger. One way to avoid a really high scoop like that is, again, we look at what's really needed to be held down. Because my ring finger is on that C string, I could bring my middle finger to that C string as well. So for example, I can have my bar here on the 2nd fret. My middle finger, I can actually bar 3 strings. Now you'll see this height here isn't as steep as when I'm doing 2 strings. See how much that makes a difference? So if I could do this with relative ease, then I have to worry just about bringing my ring finger to that C string. So that's one way, especially if you have longer fingers like me, one way to alleviate some of that pain and frustration by having only to bring that down for 2. Look how painful that looks. So part of it is, again, using your middle finger for 3 strings and working on that, which is it's like a 9 chord there, but bring that ring finger there. So again, there's multiple ways to work on these shapes.
And one thing to also keep in mind too, when you're working on that shape, I don't know if this was said, is your hand naturally wants to curl, right? So as soon as you can get this sounding clean, but as soon as you add this, you'll notice that this finger starts to want to curl. So I found that doing reps, whether I'm holding 2 strings or 3 strings, but doing little reps with my ring finger like this to try to help train it not to try to curl up and make a fist, to be a helpful way of kind of getting that chord under my fingers. Because that's usually what happens is as soon as you add that ring finger, you're like, wait, it's not clean anymore. And that's part of why.
Yeah, and Renee, we love Aldrin as well. We've worked with them so many times throughout the years, and there is something about having live, one-on-one, kind of feedback, and that's another great thing about kind of what we have with Artist Works too, is that people get to actually record themselves playing, and we can actually analyze, just like we did with Diane over the video exchanges as well, to kind of see what can be tweaked and worked on. That's why we love that kind of hybrid of learning at your own pace, but still getting that feedback. So yeah, Aldrin is absolutely fantastic as well. Other things, if you want to be able to jump into a jam and play, as one of your goals, part of that is then taking on learning some of the theory behind things, understanding how progressions work. We did a really great breakdown on that in the intro to theory and soloing. You can find that on our website as well. So that's a free live YouTube workshop just like this. But it kind of breaks down the progression you need to kind of work on just being able to jump in and understand how that progression is going to go. If you want to be able to take a solo or write original songs, again, trying to break down what's important. For original songs, you have to have a grasp on progressions, so it frees you up to do multiple things, not just one progression and all your songs sound exactly alike, right? We want to be able to have variety in those arrangements. If your big goal for, let's say, the first 6 months of this year is to focus on tone and finding your sound, everyone plays a little bit differently. More of a mellow sound, or we want that nice crisp strum. These are the things, when we say practice with intent, when you're playing through a song, think of how you can manipulate that differently, because sometimes you don't know you want a song to be played differently until you hear it. So you have to give yourself an opportunity to experiment, even if it fails horribly and never to play it like that again. At least you went through the motions to try it, but you have to give yourself that opportunity. And some other great examples, goals is, being able to transpose on the fly, using more substitutions or voicings in your playing. So there really is an unlimited amount of goals that you could really dive into. But part of that challenge is prioritizing what's important. Where do you want to end up? And then we can help break that down of these little things to help get you there. But again, unless your foundation is set, you will always be moving backwards to kind of plug the holes as you go along. That's why we can't stress enough about the ability to just play through basic chords and songs and have it sound exactly, solid as you want it, not, that kind of a sound. We want to make sure that the foundation is set first, because then everything opens up from there. Everything gets then layered on. But if that is not strong, if that is not consistent, you will always be going back to that point whenever you're learning something new. So that's why we do have this huge emphasis on making sure those steps are nice and solid. Even I forget what exact the video was when I went through the bar chord exercises, how to build that. But if we have time later after the I Will song today, I'll kind of go over that a little bit.
We'll do a quick review of it, because there is a spot in the packet where we discuss that.
Okay, great.
And then the other thing I was just going to add is these goals that we're talking about. I actually found that I would make a yearly goal, which would be like something very lofty. But then I would make these monthly goals to help me get to the yearly goal. So that way, things felt a little more doable, because I liked being able to look at the larger picture and then break it down and say, okay, well, what do I need to know in order to get to this larger goal? And so that's how I used to break down my practice, is going, okay, the large goal is to be able to play a 1 hour set. So here are the different things that I need to be able to do in order to play this 1 hour set, or whatever it may be. So, and also, your big yearly goal could be, I want to be able to, feel comfortable at a jam. So then, the things I'll work on are transposing, playing chords up the neck, and scales. Those would be my main focuses for being able to feel comfortable at a jam, so that if anybody calls out a tune, I can, hop in. And somebody had asked about, which keys are good ones to start with. That's kind of tricky because it really depends on the kind of jams you're going to. If you're doing like fiddle jams and things, like the key of A is a pretty popular key. But if you're doing like a uke jam, usually C, F, and G are pretty good keys that you'll hear a lot of people play in. And that might be where I would start. If you're playing with a guitarist, you might want to actually work on E, because they play frequently in E, because that's a friendly key for them, even though it's not necessarily as friendly for uke. So.
Oh my gosh, I love seeing that Craig needs more cameras.
Yes, so somebody had asked for a close-up of my hand, but I said we only have 3 cameras.
Well, we actually have 4. Oh, we're not right set up, but next time I'll get a 4th camera set up.
Oh, jeez. but it's not the same kind of camera, though.
It is.
It is? We have another one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we do. That's right. It's the
Yeah.
festival one. I guess we'll get set up with even more more cameras next time.
But now let's get you set up and with I Will then, because I think
Okay.
right now we're going to be talking a little bit more about different practice examples while we
Yes.
go through the song.
Yeah. And also somebody mentioned the Eberswald. Yes. So if you're practicing jazz stuff, you can certainly look up a guy named Jamie Eberswald. I still practice with his playbacks frequently. And they're just really great, especially if you're doing like 2-5-1 practice.
That's
he has
exactly
a whole
what
book.
Diane mentioned
He's
too,
got a
yeah.
whole book of 2-5-1 where he goes through all 12 keys, which is really great. I think he also has some 1-6-2-5 stuff as well. But yes. And I love, more people are saying, yes, more cameras. Oh my gosh. You guys, don't encourage him. Okay, so let's just have some fun and play the song, right? For right now. And one thing, I'll talk about it after. Let's just go through. Hopefully I'll remember. I remember all the words. It's been a long time since I've done this song. And we're just gonna play super just 4 on the floor, nothing fancy. 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, real quick before I get started, because I like to stop right when you're about to play, is this box. This is a box chart. It's each measure or box is 4 beats. So if there's 2 chords listed, each chord gets played for 2 beats to equal 4, because we are in 4/4 time. And I'll try to also announce, I'm going to look at the music on my iPad to ensure that I say, go here next, because just because of how the song form is. And I'm going to actually scroll up a little bit. There we go. To ensure that you can see the full song. I think I went too far. There we go. So right there. 1, 2, okay. A little more. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Who knows how long I've loved you? You know I love you still. Will I wait a lonely lifetime? If you want me to, I will. And then we're going to repeat back to the G. In that D, I saw you. I didn't catch your name, but it never really mattered. I will always feel the second ending, G to G7. C, love you forever, E minor, and forever, C, love you with all my heart, love you whenever we're together, A7, love you when we're apart, to the C section, G, but when at last I find you, Your song will fill the air. Sing it loud so I can hear you. Make it easy to be near you. For the things you do endear you to me. Oh, you know I will. Yay! Now, some of you might have noticed me doing a couple of things that Craig mentioned in the very beginning, which is when I'm playing my G chord, I'm just adding my pinky to the party on that C string. So that's a one finger motion, right? And I'm actually going to go ahead and scroll down because I have that actually written out. So you'll notice on our worksheet that I've got that G to E minor, and I have that little dot in orange for you. The other option is sometimes you could use a chord substitution. Chord substitutions don't always have to be super hard. They can be super easy. For example, E minor 7 is just open to, open to, open to, right? So all I'm doing for that change is lifting up a finger. And that sounds lovely as well. So you could use either one, and it's really great to be able to just either add the pinky or take away a finger. And that works fantastic. Another one that to kind of look at is Craig mentioned when you play a minor, use your middle finger. That's going to be important whether you're making that chord a D or a D7. So in our music, we have it as a D7, and you can, it's really easy to add your ring finger to the party, but also I like how that barred D7 sounds. And part of the reason why I like it is the melody note that you're singing is actually, I think, this note on that 3rd fret. So it's nice to have that melody in there in your chord. So you'll notice that I'm actually barring that D7 with my middle finger because it was already on the G string. So all I have to do is flatten it out and add my ring, and voila. And I think Craig might have mentioned this earlier, your middle finger is your longest finger. So why not use it to bar? Because you've got, more length to be able to bar, right? So that's just something else, again, to keep in mind when you're looking at these transitions. And when you look at your transitions, I like to go like chord to chord to chord to chord so that I can kind of see, okay, well, what's going to be the most efficient, looking ahead and looking at it. So those two are, I think, the really big ones to really keep in mind if I'm playing G to E minor or E minor 7, A minor with the middle, and then if I want to bar, just flatten, and that makes that go by pretty darn quick. The other thing too is when it goes to it almost repeats, except instead of going from, so it's G, E minor, B minor. So here, I tend to use my index for that bar just because it's in the vicinity. I don't jump up and use my middle finger for that B minor 7 necessarily. Or maybe I'll use a different B minor 7, which I'll show you a little bit later in the packet. So one other thing that we just wanted to kind of go over today with this is you'll notice I have written chord transition exercise. So this is actually an exercise that Craig teaches on ArtistWorks. And we'll just go through it briefly, just because this is recorded, you'll be able to go back and rewatch and pause and see it. But that way Craig can go through it. And also maybe afterward, you can also talk about that bar exercise too, because that's next on the agenda.
Okay, I'll keep that there. Let me zoom in a little bit on this.
Yay!
Okay, let's see. So the whole goal for this particular exercise is to, again, not have to do this when we're changing chords. We don't want to have to necessarily feel like we do a huge reset between everything. And it's still one of those things where we take for granted sometimes. So without further ado, let me switch cameras. Boom. All right. Oh, now that's weird. Let me do...
Oh, no.
Okay. All right. So, oh, sorry. So we have C, G, A minor, F, G7, E7, A7, D7, G. Now, the big thing again is try to keep this form consistent throughout so we're not doing a ton of extra work. So from C to G to A minor, I'm just reaching across, index down for the F, surround him for G7, E7, A7, Hawaiian D7, and slide up back to G. So again, these tiny little things, again, you didn't see me move my wrist at all. There's a slight rotation that happens as I reach to some of these further chords. But again, you can quickly go from C, G, A minor, F, G7, E7, A7, D7, G, and it's all right there. This is a fantastic exercise on just being able to hone that left hand in a bit and making sure that you're not squeezing too hard. Someone mentioned in the chat, when you're squeezing too hard, whether it's a bar chord or a full chord, it takes more energy to then relax and get to the next chord and squeeze hard again. You want to feel like you're kind of floating through these chords and just holding enough, with enough energy to make a noise or to make that ring. So for example, on my G chord, if I'm just touching those 3 strings, it doesn't really ring, but slowly adding enough pressure to then allow it to ring, that's maybe 15 to 20% of my pressure, not 100, right? So part of it is finding that nuanced touch so that we can get around the fretboard much easier and efficient. And as Sarah always mentions, you want to be loose with that left hand too, because it affects your right hand as well. If you're squeezing with the left, typically we strum harder with our right as well. We have that kind of connection there. And if you scroll up on the bar chords, so the bar chords, again, the easiest way to kind of build up, if you're having trouble with bar chords, the easiest way to build this up is, again, take that 5th fret as an example. Again, I can use no thumb, but I'm pulling into my body this way, and my right forearm is pulling that way. Now, again, typically, these 2 strings on the top sound really good, and then that happens. Because again, as we squeeze, it naturally wants to pull up here. It makes a fist. So this sounds really good, and then it does not. And again, my thumb is actually on the back, but pointed up to the headstock. So I'm not pinching right behind the bar, but it is helping leverage. Now, this is slightly changed from how I initially taught this, because what I used to do was say, okay, if you can do 1 string now at a time, or if you can't do 1 string at a time, you're going to start building it up from the A string. So we're going to hold the A string down, pluck it, perfect. Now, while you're plucking that A string, you're now going to switch to 2 strings on your left hand, but only pluck that same A string. Then you're going to hold down 3 strings, but only pluck again that A string. So again, you can lighten up here because we don't need those strings to ring yet. We're just focusing on the A string. Then we can borrow 4 strings, but only focus on getting that A string to ring. And you're going to see how that leverage changes on your index. Because if you can get that A string to ring, chances are the rest of the notes will be there, because it's always easier to add extra energy and effort there than it is to the A string. Now from here, once you get used to building that up, then you're going to take both the middle and ring finger, place them on the G string. Now take your middle finger off, and you're going to play 1 string at a time. Then bring your ring finger over 1 string, then another string down, and another string down. Now the reason why we started off with 2 fingers on that G string, because I used to say just bring your ring finger over, but some people were actually having the bar here and then reaching over and kind of smoothing that guy out so he was touching the other strings. When you bring both your middle and ring over, you see how it rotates. So I get that nice curl that's happening because the ball of my ring finger is very close to the fretboard. When it's out like this, it wants to flatten that guy out. See how that changes that curl? So that's how we get that beautiful curl on these bar chords. So, or chords in general. So we bring our middle ring here, keeping the ball of our fingers kind of close, and then take off the middle finger and work on bringing that ring finger over one at a time. And again, you're going to feel this rotation that happens as you get to the A string, and that's totally fine, but you need that reach here. Then you can bring your middle finger over, same thing, one string at a time. But this is going to give you a really great exercise to work on your bar chords and work on these different combinations of fingers to work on those stretches.
Yay!
All right.
Fantastic. So now with that in mind, chord substitutions. Well, let's say that's one of your goals and something that you can maybe change up in this song. So your substitutions don't always have to be super fancy. In fact, you can take a step back if you think it actually helps your tune. For example, instead of playing a D7, you could try playing a D chord. The reason why we bring that up is there's a lot of times that the D chord follows the C. That's a whole step away. And maybe you want to have that sound of going up a whole step as opposed to having that D7 chord. The thing to keep in mind with this is you're actually you're taking a note away from the D7. A D7 chord is based on a major chord, so it has 3 of the same notes, D, F sharp, and A. So you could just get rid of, that, what is that, an F sharp not the F sharp, I'm so sorry. Duh, Sarah. Sorry, my brain had a moment. But if you end up making this a D instead, you could use this D, but what I have written is going from the C that looks like a B flat, but it's on the 3rd fret. And if you moved it up to the 5th fret, voila, so I have the C to D. Versus what we originally did, which was C to D7. C to D7. They sound very different, and it really depends on where in the song you might want to use that instead. So just keep that in mind, is that if you have a dominant 7 chord, you could make it a major chord, and then you have this really pretty movement that you could do. You might even be able to do, if the song feels like it calls for it. That was me just going up and playing that half step for a hot minute. So that's something else that you can, look at your song when you're going through the arrangement going, oh yeah, I'm going to add that, right? So then, of course, you can try adding all those fancy substitutions and playing up and down the neck. That could be another goal you have. So I have an example up of a verse, or part of a verse up. And you'll notice that the 1, 2, 3, 4th measure, first line, that number 5 is highlighted. Now, some of you might already have a corrected version because the correction got caught at 7 a.m. this morning, Hawaii time. So I'm going to correct it on my packet now so that you know where that spot is. It should be the 4th fret. If you bought a packet after 7:10 a.m. Hawaii time today, you've got the corrected packet. So let me go in and just quickly correct that real fast. Zoop. We're going to zoom in. This is very exciting. And then I'm going to just do this. 4. Ta-da! And we'll zoom back up. So there you go. I'll highlight it again just so that you know. So just don't forget to do that small correction. Sorry about that. So keeping in mind that you'll want to practice, your chord transitions and all of that. I'm going to just go through and play this and talk through how I'm thinking and doing these transitions. But before I do that, I want to point out a couple of things. Measure number 2, A minor 7 to D9. So instead of playing D7, I'm playing a fancy D9 chord. Now, if you look at that one and then look at the 4th measure, it's the same shapes almost. And I could have made it the exact same shapes if I wanted to and liked the sound. But just noticing those kinds of things, we're like, oh, those are like very similar shapes. I'll remember that, but it's 2 frets up. I can play that pattern again. And then looking at the second line, 1, 2, 3rd measure in, it's the exact same thing as measure 2. A minor 7 and C6 look exactly the same on the uke. So you get to play that same pattern again, which is, I think, pretty darn cool. I also like to go ahead and take a look at the first measure, second line. Notice that C6 chord, which is 5-7-5-7, which we talked about at the very beginning of somebody had asked about the shape. And then we just take your ring finger and move down 1 on that C string, and there is the D9 chord.
Oh, you made an error on your. Make sure to cover the full bar on what you might have erased a dot.
Oh, I accidentally erased it.
Yes, thank you to Sherry who brought that up. Yes, thank you.
Yes. Oh my goodness, that would sound terrible with an open G string. So we'll copy that. Boop. You get to see how I do this. Whee. Boop.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry. Yeah, that totally got taken off when I took away the other thing. I'm sure you guys enjoy the sort of behind the scenes of how we make these packets. So again, though, that 5-7-5-7, and then just moving that ring down. Some people like to play this 5-7-5-7 with a bar chord like this. I have trouble doing it that way, but again, you can do it however gets the job done. So I'm going to go through and play this at a super tempo del lerno so you can hear what this sounds like. So I have my G. Who knows how long? I've A minor 7. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing a slight swivel and then adding loved you. And all I'm going to do is move my middle finger over so that my E string is no longer covered. You, and then I'm going to add my pinky and then make what looks like D minor on that 3rd fret. No, I 7, love you. And then I'm going to scoot down to 4 and then add the rest of the chord. Still jump back up. Will I 5 and 7 a lonely lifetime? If you want me to, I will. Right? Let me play it at a little bit more speed now. Who knows how long I've loved you? You know I love you still. And then jump back up. Will I wait a lonely lifetime? If you want me to, I will. So.
And before moving on, can
Yes.
you do a quick reference on like the C to the C with the red 3? Some people are just confused what the red numbers represent.
Oh.
Just for
The red numbers, I am referring to the fret number. And the reason I have them in red is I found that when they were in black, it was easy to miss them. So that's what the red numbers are, is telling you what fret you're on. So for example, measure 3, G6, is on the 3rd fret with your index. And then the 7th fret, E minor 7, is next. So that's what that is referring to. Thank you so much for asking. So that, again, this is with keeping practice goals in mind. Maybe this might be a goal you have with a song like this. And so this would be one of the things I might do, is take a song like I Will and then start with a verse and just say, I'm going to use all the fancy chords I can think of. So anytime there's a major chord, I'm going to make it a major 6. Anytime there's a minor chord, I'll make it a minor 7. Anytime there's a dominant 7 chord like G7, I'll make it a 9, like G9. So that's something that you can do just for fun for your practice, because that will help you learn those substitution chords. So that's something that I used to have fun doing. You can also sometimes replace a major chord with a major 7, but I think I have a song arranging live stream where I go more in depth into that, that you can always find. It's on our YouTube channel. So I'm going to keep moving forward, because when you use substitutions and things like this, you might start to hear other things and go, oh, you know, in my mind, I hear this sound, and then you want to try to find them. One of those things that I'm talking about is actually at the 1, 2, 3rd, and 4th measure of that first line. I hear this walk down thing happening in my mind. I'm gonna just scoot up a hair. And so for me, what I did was I was like, well, let me see, and I just noodled until I found what I was looking for. But when I'm playing that E minor 7 on the 7th fret, and then going to that B minor 7. I want to walk there. I really want to hear that cascade. So what I ended up doing was moving it down. Now I could play B minor 7 here if I wanted to, and that's totally fine. But I actually really liked just taking the bar and moving it down and playing a D minor 7 there. And then you'll notice that I actually switched up because I'm referring to, I'm just gonna do a quick, I'm referring to this area down here, just so that you guys know where I'm at in the packet. I actually do another super fancy substitution, a G9 sharp 5, where I'm playing 4, 5, 5, 5, and then I'm adding this note, which is actually a very fancy substitution that you can do, but you don't have to. You could always just do that. So let me go through and just play what I was hearing in my head so you can hear it too. So I'm gonna start from the beginning of our phrase. Who knows how long I loved you? You know I love you still. Will I wait lonely? So hopefully you got to hear it too, where you had this really cool 2 beats of D minor, and then I played a G9 and then added that fancy pink note, and then continued on. And so I was actually doing something fancy called voice leading. But again, the more that you play with these substitutions and things, you'll start to hear, you know, all of this stuff, and you're like, oh, I wonder what happens if I move this chord or if I do this. And so that's one thing that I enjoyed about going through and trying to rearrange songs in my practice. That was just my practice. I wasn't trying to perfect the song. I was just practicing arranging. And I would make these cool discoveries as I went through. Yeah. And, oh, funny, somebody was asking, is there any chance of adding a Guitar Pro ukulele class session?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
We
can
actually
definitely...
have talked about having me do a live stream that's just me going through and showing how I do notation with Guitar Pro. Because I've gotten very fast at it, and I love writing notation. This kind of stuff I've always really enjoyed. So yeah, we'll see. Try to do something like that. That would be great. Thank you for that suggestion. All right, I think we're on to this. This is the final part of our program today, and we wanted to really spend some time on it. So I wanted to just make sure that we got through some of those different ideas that we had for this tune. Now, one thing also to keep in mind, the fancy substitutions, you'll notice towards the end of your packet, I actually have a tabbed out Guitar Pro version of the entire song with fancy substitutions. And utilizing some other substitutions, we talked about playing D instead of D7. So you'll notice you actually have that in your packet already, whether you have the standard packet or the Diaper Club packet. So just bear that in mind. After this, you can always flip through and you'll find it.
Yeah, and Mark in the chat had a great, comment about that chord sequence really lays out nicely when you track each string's changes one at a time like that.
Yes.
That's exactly why when, we recommend to students who, when we are arranging songs like this and looking at the different voicings, we don't necessarily want to do chords up the neck just for the sake of having something different, but there is intent. There is if you want to have common notes in the different, chords leading up to it, that's what you try to emulate. But that's exactly why we say write things out if you're really experimenting with that, and look at your different choices and see if you can create an entirely different kind of theme, like that walk down, or things like that within the arrangement itself. And this is where things get so fun and creative, because now the more tools and options you have, the more creative you can be, the more true to your voice or your style you can be. So that's why we always say, listen to different genres, listen to different things that you can do with the instrument, because it'll give you ideas to create. So that's a fantastic comment there.
And I just lost what I was going to say because I was looking at the chat answering a question. Oh, phooey. That's all right. It'll come to me. It'll come to me later, I'm sure. But one of the biggest things we get asked about is singing and playing at the same time. Now, luckily, we did talk a little bit about some of these tips already earlier in today's programming. So working on the parts separately, i.e. work on your vocals and then work on your ukulele. Now, you can work on them at the same time, meaning that you're going to sing and you'll record yourself playing your uke part and then sing over that without playing your ukulele at all. But it's good to just spend some time focusing on one and the other. Because remember, your voice is an instrument, and so it would be good to practice that instrument separately to ensure that you've got all the parts down that you want to ensure that that's all set before you go and putting them together, because you'll have a higher rate of success. The other thing is, I already mentioned recording yourself. And then circling the words that fall on the downbeat. So a lot of times we don't have sheet music, right? You'll just have a lyric sheet. And so this is Craig's idea, circle or highlight the song, the words that fall on the downbeat. And one thing that you can do is sort of, I call it William Shatnering it, when you will say the words, just speak the words as you're going through who knows how long I've loved you. You know I love you still, right? And just going through and just making sure that you can say the words at the right place. And if you have the downbeat circled, the lyric circled, you can emphasize it. And it's not going to sound like the best music, but you're practicing making sure you're singing at the correct place. Right? And then, don't be afraid of marking all over your music. You might find that you need to write other notes to remind you that, oh, there's a rest here. Oh, there's a, X, Y here. I remember many times when I was in orchestra practice, the conductor would tell us, second violins, make a note of da, 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 da. And so we'd have to get out our pencils and write on our music. And the same for any instrument. When you're working on something, you take notes, write things down in your music. I always have a spare copy, like I have my original, and then I make copies that I write all over, so that my original is intact. But yeah, some of my, especially early on, my music, it just had like chord diagrams and all kinds of stuff written all over it. So don't be afraid.
Do you have it listed in the packet at all, what you're talking about, or no?
It's. Don't be afraid of marking your music.
Or the examples of you doing that.
I do. So then don't put things together until you feel like you've got it. So for example, if you've been working on your vocals for a while and you're like, okay, I got it memorized. I think I can add the chords now. Then you don't have to think about the lyrics or the melody anymore, because you've got that memorized. And then you can look at your chords and sing, and it'll feel like second nature, which will be really great. So that's what I mean by the last thing of don't put the two together until you're really feeling like you've got one of them nailed down. Now, example. Our example is I took our song and I used our sheet music as a guide. Now, the one thing I thought was funny is I bought multiple copies of this song sheet music, and the notation is not at all how I sing it, which I thought was funny. But I went ahead and just used the music notations just as my hard, fast, this is where the words fall. And so that's why, it's going to sound, I think, pretty rigid. But I went through and I highlighted, and you'll see my sort of color coding there. Orange is the downbeat. And so I have my lyrics, and then I have the chords I've written in, and you'll see that the downbeat is the word nose. That's a G. E minor, there's that one, A minor, and you can see all of that. Now, you'll notice there's a red one that I have that's a D7 on that first line. That's to remind me that the chord does not change over lyrics. So just know that D7 isn't just a random thing. It's, don't forget to play it. So that's what I meant by highlighting that. And then I have this purple thing because I need to remember that lonely is not said how you would say it. It's lonely. lifetime. And so that reminds me that I need to remember to elongate the word lone and then add li. But that's my own interpretation and how I would mark up some music. You'll find your own ways of kind of doing that. So I'm just going to go through and play this super robotically real quick. So going through and looking at it, doing who knows how long I've loved you. Whoops, I messed up because of that. You know I love you still. Will I wait a lonely lifetime? If you want me to, I will. So for playing and singing at the same time, having these notes is super helpful because it is hard, especially if you've never done it before. So hopefully doing this kind of thing is helpful for you, being able to speak your lyrics and have fun with it too. I mean, you could totally, as I said, William Shatner it up and make it very melodramatic.
Yeah, the biggest takeaway I think that it really sticks out is the foundation has to be there. You have to be able to go through the basic chords, the basic kind of arrangement, and then you can start layering things, whether you're changing up the pattern or you're changing up how you're phrasing the lyrics. But that always has to be the most important thing you focus on. The more and the more solid your foundation is, that's when you can really start experimenting and do new and different things. Again, it's easy to get caught up on, I want to do that one Jake arrangement, and you try to just jump way too far ahead if the other side isn't quite up to par yet. You have to be able to build upon it. Yes, I mean, you can jump straight forward and you can play that one song that one way and that's it. But if you really want to hone in what makes that song great, or being able to change things on the fly, you have to be able to have these solid steps as you push further. And even things like mucking with your rhythm a little bit,
If you want me to, I will.
But it's being able to know the main arrangement well enough that you can then start experimenting and changing it up. There's so many fun, little things, but getting that down, again, is going to be the key. And I'm going to have another really quick special guest.
And while Craig is getting that set up, Yahoo! While Craig is getting that set up, at the very end, or at the end of the page, I actually have a bonus Craig's cool picking pattern. If you liked what you heard Craig do just now, we actually have the rhythm. We have the rhythm written out. I don't have it tabbed out. I'm sorry, but the rhythmic phrasing that he did, this sort of Latin-esque feeling, is actually at the bottom because we weren't sure if we were going to get to teaching it that today or not. So at least you have the rhythm, because I know that we are coming to the end of our time, and I hear little Cameron's already up and having a great time with his grandparents.
Yes, and he's going to be
Awesome.
jumping on in just a second. But did you want to go through a little bit? Some people are asking, what is the chord melody version?
Oh, yeah. Let me actually pull that up on my screen to make sure I actually play it how it's written, because I will totally play it how I want, not as written. So the chord melody, so I did what I call sort of a bass chord melody. This would be what I might do as my first pass through of going through the tune. And then I might add some cool picking and things. So I'll just play a little bit of it so that we've got that. So let's see here. I'll go through super slow. And then I'll change it up how I would probably play a little bit more. Open G. And then this guy, I actually used that chord instead, which looks like a G, but you could use that fancy C6 if you wanted. Ah. You could use that full or just play to that A note. Full D7. Strum up if you have a high G, because your G note's here for the melody. That's what that notation means for those of you that actually already have that music. So that's sort of the bass, but you can always change it up and, you know, ah. Very different sounding, and that was just the first two measures. Right, because I have that note on my G string. So you can change and actually add some of the elements that we talked about today to this bass chord melody, because I really did make this one very literal. So I hope you guys enjoy it.
See, we're gonna invite this guy on for a little bit because
Hey,
I
know that guy. I cannot hear that guy, but I know that guy.
No more volume.
Oh.
How come? Brian, we gotta buy you a new mic.
Oh no. Oh no.
Guest has muted themselves.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Brian, you muted yourself. Oh no.
Brian. Oh no. Look good though.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yay.
Huh. Can you guys hear Brian? Oh, you guys can hear Brian. How come we can't hear Brian?
Oh, how funny. That's crazy.
Let me see.
And actually, while you guys are doing that, I might go grab a special guest.
I could hear Diane earlier.
Actually, maybe before I do that, I'll stick around.
Is...
So thank you guys so much. Oh, so there are
Oh,
many
no,
people
they
saying
can't
they
hear
cannot
Brian
hear
either.
Brian. Yes.
How come?
Oh no. But hopefully this has inspired you to
Brian, there's no more can you set your microphone in the thing? You can change your camera and you can change your microphone. No. Oh well, what here's one of the things that what we're gonna do as we're closing up too, we're gonna schedule another time we can interview Brian about some of the things that he did growing up. What were some of the goals that he took on to himself? Because again, everyone's journey is different, and how we get there, you know, we go through so many different paths and so many different influences. And Brian is you know, incredibly versatile in what he does. And so I was hoping that he could share some of his path and some of the things he chose to focus on to get to where he is today. So, you know, but we'll make sure to invite Brian for our next one and talk story a little bit. I'm so bummed. Brian, you sure? Check one more time. No more camera assignment or audio assignment on the thing. So Brian just discovered smartphones like a year ago, and so he's learning how to use all this technology stuff.
Oh no, so bad. Don't say that about Brian.
Oh my gosh! But we'll make sure to we will make. I know everyone's saying plug in the mic, Brian. But we'll make sure, we'll promise, we'll get Brian back on and talk story about some of the things that he did. But thanks, Brian. Sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry.
We'll catch up soon, bro.
Bye. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, such an excellent musician. And
Yeah.
again, he's done so many different things. So it'd be great to get his input on some of the goals he set up for himself back in the day and also today as well.
Yeah.
But in the meanwhile, again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes.
the big hope was we were hoping to inspire you to think about your goals, give some direction on some of the different things that we focus on when we have those similar goals, and just to re-energize you to do what you do and push forward, because again, we all want to be better. We all want to, you know,
Sorry, that's Cameron.
have different things to really focus on. And the end goal again is, are you hoping to be able to comfortably play in front of friends and family, or do you want to be featured at open mics? You know,
Yeah.
these will all help shape your priorities moving forward. And again, thank you so much for those who you know donated for packets and also paid it forward for others. Thank you for those who did the diaper package with the chord melody
Yes.
arrangement. And we have some really exciting news for the festival stuff, as well as for our retreat,
Yes.
as well as for our youth cruises. Probably 2022 is what we're aiming for.
Yeah.
And also, we do have a current save the date for next month, or in March actually.
Yes.
Is it March 6th? On March 6th, we'll also be producing another workshop led by Jake Shibabukuro. So
It's gonna be really
that's gonna be a
cool.
ton of fun. We're putting that together with him. And
Cameron's very excited about it.
so make sure you're on our mailing list or subscribe to this channel. Thank you guys so very much. Have a wonderful Saturday.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining in. We'll see you guys soon.
Bye, everybody.
Oh, real quick.
Oh.
There was a question about the E chord. This will take like 10 seconds. So, if you can play a D, play it with the middle ring and pinky. And I'm going to switch things for just a second. So, here's your D chord. Use your middle ring and pinky, D chord. Slide it up 1 fret. Take your index finger, place it on the 1st fret of the A string. Slide it up, everything up 1 fret. That's your E chord. The reason why this works a little bit easier than starting with your index is that now these 3 guys have to fight for that shape. But if you start with that D chord with those 3 fingers, it allows you to get that set first and then practice on moving that shape up. So I hope that helped. I'm sorry, I wanted to make sure I got to that because it was asked in the chat.
Okay.
But thank you guys. So
Thank you, guys.
And the bar with the pinky works, but it sometimes doesn't have that same voicing that you might want compared to, it might be too kind of bright with that root on the top there. So
Nice.
there's just options, and
All right.
bye guys. Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Thank you guys so much. Hi.